What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for Sports. So, this is a video request that I had gotten maybe a week and a half ago, and the person reminded me yesterday, and I made sure I wrote it down so I didn't forget. Because sometimes, as my channels are starting to get bigger, I'm getting a lot more requests, so sometimes I can forget. So, if I do forget, don't be shy about reminding me about some of these things. But they wanted me to, I guess, give my thoughts or opinion as to what would have happened if Tracy McGrady and Allen Iverson teamed up in Philadelphia. Now, let me say this. This is just an opinion. This is not based in any factual information. I could very well be 100% wrong. The only thing I'm doing is giving an educated guess. So the same things, even though, they're more infinitely qualified than I am, that you will see from scouts and general managers. They're they're guesstimating about players and projections and all these things. Oftentimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. So these are my thoughts on this. Now bear with me because I got to explain some things first. First of all, this almost happened. It almost happened. Tracy McGrady and Allen Iverson were almost teammates back in 1999. There was a trade that had been approved that would have sent Tracy McGrady to the Philadelphia 76ers in exchange for, I believe, Larry Hughes and maybe a draft pick or something of that nature. Gotta remember at that time, Tracy McGrady was not a superstar. He had not established himself yet as a superstar in his league. This is when he was still with the Toronto Raptors. Vince Carter was the man, not Tracy McGrady. Vince Carter, his cousin. But the trade would have went down had it not been for one big mouth Philadelphia Inquirer reporter by the name of, may have heard of him, Stephen A. Smith, who leaked the story before it should have been reported. Toronto got cold feet. They backed out of the trade. It did not occur. Now, I just want to give a little backstory. After the Bulls' fifth championship in 1997, Tracy McGrady was, 17 years old, 18 years old at the time, young phenom out of high school, about to enter the NBA as an 18-year-old kid. Jerry Krause, the general manager of the then five-time champion Chicago Bulls, saw young Tracy McGrady, saw him play. At that time, the Toronto Raptors had his rights, I believe. He was so enthralled by Tracy McGrady that he almost pulled the trigger on a trade that would have sent Scottie Pippen to the Raptors, I believe, in exchange for Tracy McGrady. The only thing that stopped that trade from occurring was Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan rarely meddled when it came to front office decisions. He might have voiced his opinion about certain things, but he rarely meddled uh, in those things. But this time he pulled a power move. He said, "You know what? Hey, you know what? If y'all trade Scottie Pippen, I'm retiring. I'm not gonna be here, coddling some young kid, man. He would be part of the rebellion process. I'm in to win championships. Y'all love when I do join on." So that got nixed. Jerry Reinsdorf probably told Jerry, "Hey, nix it. Okay? Well, I'll probably fire your ass. But, nix it, motherfucker." Okay. But at that time, Tracy McGrady, his game was his game was different. Like the way he played basketball. You know, when he went to Orlando, and bear with me, when he went to Orlando, it was supposed to have been him, Grant Hill, and Tim Duncan. They would have played together. Now it wasn't. They didn't collude it. They didn't go to some 5-star restaurant and you know dine over extravagant food and colluded about how they were going to dominate the league. This just was a happenstance thing. It almost happened. The only reason why Tim Duncan didn't go to Orlando was because A, David Robinson started talking him out of it, and B, Doc Rivers rubbed Tim Duncan the wrong way when Tim Duncan lived in the Virgin Islands. Doc Rivers wouldn't allow Tim Duncan to bring his family with him to Orlando to see the facility. Okay, so he's out, but it still would have been Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady. Now in this scenario, Tracy McGrady would have been sort of like the Scottie Pippen. He would have been more of a facilitator, all around guy. Grant Hill now would have changed his approach to the game. He'd probably been more of a primary scorer. He would have played more like Mike. And I'm telling you, we got robbed of a lot of shit with Grant Hill, y'all. I can only imagine if you had Grant Hill play on that Detroit Pistons team and he was averaging 24, 23, 25, 7, 8, 9 rebounds, 7, 8, 9 assists. If he was doing that in the 90s in that slow paced era, and you tell you, man, all these young cats don't, boy, you put him on Orlando and he's just scoring, I guarantee you Grant Hill probably led the league in scoring. But anyway, as we know, Grant Hill's foot problem was much more severe than it was, and we all know what happened with that. So Tracy was forced to be a primary scorer because the roster sucked, and he had to take on that responsibility. And then Tracy McGrady, the player that we all observed for over almost a decade, came to fruition. But in this universe or metaverse or what the fuck you want to call it, this reality, alternate reality, Tracy, I think is going to play more like Penny Hardaway. All right, because he's going to have to coexist with AI. He's going to have to be more of a facilitator. He's going to have to uh, defer at times. He's going to be more of a facilitator, but he's also going to have to play off the ball at times and work on certain aspects of his game, cut to the basket, um, catch and shoot, things of that nature. I think it would have worked because Tracy McGrady had the right mentality. I think Tracy had that winning mentality. Um, I think in this scenario, Tracy would have helped AI be more just by his presence on the court. He would have helped AI be more efficient. Um, Tracy McGrady's size. Look. Remember that was a different era. The game was slower paced. For most teams, the spacing wasn't as great because the three-point shot wasn't utilized. The paint was more clogged. So it would have helped having two young, athletic, um, quick, players. Tracy McGrady, I think, would have flourished playing with AI. I think they would have played well off each other. Um, I think in this scenario, they they might keep Tony Kukoc because Tony Kukoc could have been that spark coming off the bench like he was with the Chicago Bulls. And I know in reality, the reason why they got Mutombo was because they wanted to make that championship run. And also, Theo Ratliff, I think, broke his hand or something like that. And he would have been out for the rest of the season, maybe part of the playoffs. And they didn't want to. They was going for a championship. They knew they were a championship level team. Now, if Theo Ratliff stays healthy, You don't have to make that move. You don't have to give up Tony Kukoc. Maybe you go on that run. However, man, I don't know how they would have contended with Shaq. Because as we all saw, Shaq dominated Mutombo. Man, so that's going to be kind of weak because Theo Ratliff was a great shot blocker. I remember him averaging about three block shots a game. He was a great shot blocker. But man, what was he? 6'9", 230, going up against Shaq, 7'1". Man, I don't know what the fuck he weighed at that time. 360, 370. That would have been rough, you know. The only thing that I think they could have done was help defense, harass Shaq, push the pace of the game, um, make Shaq work on defense, which means maybe make Theo Ratliff, um, give him, run some plays for him, uh, attack the basket, make him, try to be a shot block. I don't know. But I do think that AI and Tracy would have to really carry the 76ers offensively in that series. I don't think they still would have beaten that Lakers team. But over the years, if they stayed together, add a couple more pieces and fine tune, their chemistry, maybe they beat the Spurs. Add a couple more pieces, maybe they beat the Spurs in 2003 or 2005, and who knows? I think they would have been great, man. I think they would have been great. I think they would have been the best team in the Eastern Conference for about a good 5-6 year span. But anyway, that's my take on it. Tell me what you guys think.